Yes, I know what some of you are thinking right now. I just clicked on a video and it's a Deku what if, and it's from Golden What Ifs. Can I even imagine this? Is this even believable? Is he back? Yes. Well, sort of. This is gonna be a different type of what if than what you've seen, at least recently. Recently, I've been going to a different, more edited and also more breakdown-y type of style of what if. This right here, though, is back to the roots, back to the old days, and back to the good old time when I used to do narrative what ifs, where we would go into a full-length story of, well, Deku. Maybe also other animes. I haven't decided yet. But with that said, welcome to the video. Yo, what's good, everybody? It's your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me. Haven't said that in a long time. And this right here is what if Deku had a Frostbite Quirk. Oh my goodness. It's gonna take some getting used to get back into the swing of things, but here we are with a brand new Deku what if. Not sure how long the series will be. Might be like 3 or 4 parts. I haven't decided just yet. But if you enjoy, show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. With all that said, I want to ask you guys one question. What would you guys like to see in the background? Are you guys okay with just like a thumbnail, or should I put like gameplay, or maybe like a loop of some sorts? Because I'm not gonna lie, these videos are not gonna be edited. They're like long form narrative videos, so it's gonna take super long to edit like longer videos like these. Like 30, 40, 45 to an hour long videos. It'd just be impossible. So especially if you want them consistently. So let me know what you guys want in the background of these videos. But all that said, I want to get right into the story because I just wasted 2 minutes rambling on and on and on about some BS that nobody probably cares about. Okay, let's get into it. Welcome to the world of My Hero Academia, where there's people all around and quirks as well. Yes, I said it, quirks. Quirks are superpowers that are given to the public, and they're all given, or more or less, you're born with a quirk, but it only shows up about 4 years into your life. Now, with that said, not everybody is born with a quirk, and in the original timeline, Izuku Midoriya wasn't born with a quirk. But this time around, we're going into a what if where Izuku Midoriya would be born with something known as a Frostbite Quirk, or Frostbite. Now, Izuku would be born and things would change drastically for his mother. Inko Midoriya would soon find that his son, or her son, has developed a quirk far sooner than you could possibly imagine. Now, Izuku would be just hanging out in his room, being a very, very young baby, and soon the whole house would fall under a massive chill. It begins to get extremely cold, and his mother could feel it and begin to kind of freak out, thinking that something went wrong. Maybe it's like a pipe or a leak in the freezer and something spreading, or she has no idea. She runs into the room that Izuku is currently in, supposed to be actually napping at this moment, and she realizes that Izuku's quirk has awakened, and awakened sooner than possibly anybody else's quirk. And it's kind of ice-based. She's not 100% sure, but when she goes over to grab Izuku, it's as if something is telling her not to touch him, because when she gets close, she begins to absolutely feel this overwhelming sense of just freezing, as if her whole body is about to envelop in a giant icicle. She begins to back away and allow Izuku to basically remedy it through whatever bodily process that he's basically going through at this moment. And eventually the ice would calm down and the whole house would begin to warm up once again. But she would quickly realize that she needs to take Izuku now, especially while he's awake, to the doctors to see what's going on. And quickly it would be diagnosed that Izuku has a quirk, and it's actually arrived far sooner. But his quirk seems to be extremely volatile. Yeah, volatile. His quirk begins to kind of just go array without him even doing anything. And it's a very powerful quirk, and the doctor begins to say that he's going to be one of the strongest heroes we've probably ever seen as long as they keep him on that path. but it seems like he's going to struggle to control it, especially at a young age. He basically tells Inko that you're more or less screwed unless you can somehow get him under proper surveillance or in proper environments. He would recommend that they actually move to a different climate, maybe even a climate that's a lot colder, and it might actually regulate his body way better and be able to utilize that frostbite or that ice type of a mission that he gives off. And it's a lot. The doctor explains that he's going to emit enough ice and cold to basically shock big environments, that soon, if he actually loses control of his quirk, there's a good chance that he can turn parts of Japan into frozen tundras, and they have to be extremely careful, because if they allow him to do so, well, we're gonna be in a very bad situation. So Inko begins to just talk and reach out to as many high schools and hero high schools, hero anything, that would possibly decide to actually help them. And more specifically, help Izuku. Because at the end of the day, it seems like he's kind of a harm to himself, but also everyone else. And she's afraid that he'll never be able to gain control over the power that he's showing. But soon enough, he or she actually gets a message back very quickly, and it's from the greatest hero school in Japan, UA High School. Now, this is a pretty monumentous occasion, because we're talking about someone like Izuku, or someone that is of a small family and unknown at that, really no father that is some famous hero, and now getting reached out to by UA. Now, Inko would speak on basically what he's capable of, what he can do, and the kind of person that her little child truly is. Yes, he's only like 3 or 4 years old, but he's shown great signs of being a possible hero. He has great motivations. He has a massive love for All Might, or at least that's the hope. His hope is to be like All Might, and so on. Now, with all that said, she basically asks for help, and asks for any help, more or less asking UA to kind of, take Izuku and maybe teach him how to utilize his powers, or maybe kind of put him under surveillance, or put him in an environment that could actually help. But most of UA is kind of not prepared for that. And Nezu begins to speak with her about actually sending him to UA, but under the surveillance of one Shota Aizawa, at least to a large extent. But they do say that they can actually create something, at least for the time being, that could keep his powers condensed. And they begin to tell her that they can check it out if she wants to, basically see what's going on and what they're going to make, in which Inko thinks that this is a great idea. Eventually taking Izuku over there, but finding that their solution is kind of off-putting. Their solution for now is to actually put him in a freezer-like area, some place that can actually not be completely and utterly destroyed by his mass amount of cold temperature fluctuation. And it kind of looks like a slightly big freezer, and she doesn't know how to feel about this. She genuinely says that this is not a good idea, and that what about his breathing, and if he's gonna be okay. And they assure her that this should actually work, and they're also working on a bigger area for him as well, making a type of gym area that would basically be able to control or be able to maintain itself, even though Izuku would be outputting a ton of frost and a ton of just cold air and ice and so on. So they say not to worry, and that they should be able to handle it entirely. But with all that said, they say that Izuku could become a very, very important part of UA High School. So his mother deserves to have some benefit from that as well, in which they do offer her a sum of money per month, and also a living area so that she can check on Izuku as much as she wants, and also she doesn't have to work at all, as long as she allows Izuku to go to UA and be trained by the people of UA, and kind of be a focal point of UA High School at that. She says that that's completely fine, especially if they're committed to actually helping her son, Izuku Midoriya. And of course they say they are, and yes, this is hard to believe, but let's be honest, Inko doesn't have that much of a choice at this moment. There's very little, very small and very few situations that could actually help Inko in this scenario, especially because her boy is kind of at an unknown space in his life, especially with a quirk that is so strong that he can't control it, and frankly it's only gonna get stronger the older he gets. So some more time would pass, actually quite a bit, and Izuku would continue learning and stuff like that, but he would slowly but surely start getting a grasp on his quirk, realizing that it's actually not super difficult to keep things maintained, and as long as he doesn't overdo his emission of basically frost and ice and so on, that he should be able to control it to a large extent. That if he utilizes it maybe to like skate on the ground and that's about it, he's actually fine. Now with that said, if he tries to make a giant glacier immediately in one burst, it's probably not going to go very well, and things are probably going to begin to kind of go out of control, and he might start emitting a crazy amount of ice and also just straight up cold environment, leading to Japan being covered in ice and be a frozen tundra and stuff like that. Now, he obviously doesn't want that to happen, and Aizawa is there to massively help, and frankly, with Aizawa utilizing his quirk, it actually makes it so Izuku's body takes off tons of relief, and it's almost instantaneous. So he utilizes his quirk on Izuku, and it's as if his body no longer needs to hold in and maintain the frost, and it immediately makes it so that he feels refreshed to a large extent. He doesn't really understand the science behind that and doesn't really understand why that occurs to that extent, but still, it helps him feel better. So Aizawa will give him a quick, like, you know, look with his quirk, and he's good for a little bit, especially if his quirk starts going out of control. It's always good to have someone like Aizawa ready to go to stop it from going haywire. Now, when he's only around 10 or 11 years old, they would actually begin to utilize him in a kind of like a commercial space, and it might sound kind of odd, but this is what they quote-unquote paid for. They begin to utilize him in a commercial space and utilize him in kind of a way of helping actually train some people that are up-and-coming heroes as well, people that go through the bracket of UA. So Izuku's actually involved in a ton of stuff way earlier on in his life, and he begins to train with Aizawa, train with all these other heroes, and learn basically who they are and learn from them as well. But let's be honest, a lot of these guys are students, like these other kids that he's working with, so it's not like he can really learn a ton from them when they're still learning from the other adults and the other heroes. Now, with that said, he would make a couple friends, but as high school would go, you know, come and go, they would all leave. So Izuku would quickly realize that not until he gets into the high school himself, that's when he'll actually be able to make some friends. Now, with all that said, he would be automatically admitted into UA, so he actually wouldn't be involved in any of the antics. No UA entrance exam and no like exam in general, because that was one of the stipulations that would eventually come about in the near future. Now, things would be pretty consistent. He would more or less be quote-unquote homeschooled. He would continue his training, and he would continue on and on and on. And this would prove to UA that personalized training, especially with hand-picked students, benefit them heavily, because Izuku is getting a grasp for his quirk way better than any student has ever gotten a grasp for their quirk ever in the lifespan of UA. Izuku is able to now, at the age of around 15 or 16, basically at the start of when he's about to begin UA high school, he begins to actually and basically is able to utilize his quirk to a large extent. Before I said he wasn't able to emit glaciers and not be able to control it, Izuku now can emit a giant glacier if he so chooses, and yes, there is struggle, but he wouldn't, you know, go haywire and burst and basically cover everything in ice. He's now able to control things at a large scale, And more as he learns, he begins to actually learn insane things that he's never thought he'd utilize. But in all fairness, I mean, he's still young and he's not even a hero yet, so his imagination on utilization is probably not the most broad thing in the world. Now, with all that said, we are dealing with an Izuku that is kind of tone deaf to everyone around him. I mean, he grew up not really knowing that many people outside of the people of UA in terms of some of the students, but they came and went away for, well, on countless occasions, and he rarely got to speak with them, and he trained with them from time to time, so he grew kind of like a more cold, ironically enough, attitude to most people, especially people that he doesn't know or doesn't like. I mean, for the most part, he just doesn't talk to anybody, and when he responds to certain people, I mean, you could take him as rude, at least most people would. Now, with all that said, the first day of UA would be approaching very, very soon, so he'd be able to actually show what he's capable of faster than you could possibly imagine. And that is because when he would sit down at his desk and everybody would file in for Class 1A, he would begin to listen to Aizawa speak the same way he's been hearing him speak for a very long time, and eventually thrust them into a quirk assessment test. Now, for starters, Izuku would be the test dummy. I mean, he would be up first to throw this baseball, more or less, as far as he possibly can. But in terms of raw strength, Izuku is just not that strong. But overall, he's able to utilize his ice powers and kind of like a frost wind or frosty like wind to kind of push his ball at least further than you would normally think he would be able to. But it wouldn't go as far as maybe it would in canon, or really as far as some other people would definitely throw that have more explosive like quirks. And after he would throw it, maybe getting around 50 to 100 meters, something of that realm, I mean, we would run into somebody that was able to throw somewhere along the lines of 500, and that would be Katsuki Bakugo, someone that Izuku hasn't seen since they were little, and Bakugo actually barely recognizes Izuku, and Izuku doesn't even remember him. He would basically taunt Izuku, telling him that he did better than him, and obviously he would because he has so much better of a quirk, and Izuku would then remark that he doesn't know who he is, and actually is kind of confused why he knows his name. Now, there could be a couple reasons why he doesn't know who Katsuki Bakugo is. Maybe he was just young, maybe he was just, playing coy, or maybe it's because of his quirk messing with his memories or his emotions, just like how he's kind of emotionally cold at this point in time. Could be a couple of things, but overall it might be a symptom of all of them. But still, Izuku doesn't necessarily at this moment know who Katsuki Bakugo even is. Now, they would continue on with all of the tests and stuff like that, but there's one caveat. Aizawa makes it very clear, especially after some of them celebrate, saying that this is going to be so fun, and he would begin to say that whoever gets last place is going to leave UA forever. But of course, we know Aizawa is up to his old tricks, so this isn't necessarily as big of a threat as you'd possibly think it would be. Aizawa would watch everybody go and watch everybody do their thing, and Izuku would be in the upper echelon of those people, gaining maybe rivalries with someone like Bakugo and someone like Todoroki, and he would be pretty darn close to the very top, and arguably maybe even at the very top, because his Frostbite Quirk, or more like his ice-like quirk, is able to literally make him go extremely fast, maybe even faster than someone like Tenya Ida. And then on top of that, a lot of the other ways in terms of raw strength and stuff like that, he is pretty decent at, just because of the fact that he's been training since he was pretty damn young. I mean, he's gone through quite a bit. Yes, he has been favored by UA and has been given a ton of opportunities, but he's also taken advantage of every last one of them. So he would be pretty damn close to the top of the list, if not maybe second place, right behind Todoroki. And the only bad score, or roughly bad score, he would even get is the ball throw. Everything else would be pretty damn top tier. And outside of that, he's gotten quite a bit of respect, at least from everyone else, and maybe even Todoroki to a large extent. And there's probably part of Todoroki who respects Izuku for having an ice-like quirk, and maybe has a soft spot in his heart for Izuku, kind of like as a friend, because that is his mother's side, right? Like he really loves his mother or whatever, and he doesn't really like his father very much, and that's pretty prominent throughout the story. Now, he would gain some sort of friendship with Izuku and begin to kind of introduce themselves, and Todoroki would say that he also has an ice-like quirk and stuff like that. And Izuku would remark that his is a little bit different in terms of, not being coming out of one side of him, but also because of various other reasons, but he doesn't bring them up. But from here on out, they are pretty decent friends, and overall they have a decent, good time just chatting a little bit, even though Izuku is socially awkward. But it kind of works out because Todoroki is massively socially awkward as well. Now, Aizawa would tell everybody that it's time for them to go home and stuff like that, but Izuku would kind of turn tail and just walk to his place or his dorm at UA, in which everybody is a little confused by, and a couple people that he doesn't know would actually walk up to him. Someone like Uraraka would walk up to him, asking him why he's not going home and staying here. Izuku would say that this is his home, this is where he lives, and this is where he's lived since he was like 3 years old. So yeah, and then he kind of waves her off and just leaves. Now, Uraraka is a little embarrassed by this and feels kind of bad because, I mean, it's kind of like she was weirdly looking down on him, but Izuku literally doesn't think of it this way. Of course, his social skills aren't the best, but he doesn't take basically anything personally and doesn't really care. So he kind of just like shrugs it off and kind of responds like monotone or whatever. So he sounds kind of mad, but he's not really mad. Now, she would kind of chase him down and apologize for asking, but again, Izuku would kind of wave her off and tell her like, hey, like, you're good, like, I don't care, like, it's fine. And he would go to his dorm and begin to just kind of like take notes on certain things he realized with his powers, and maybe some stuff that he could possibly utilize very soon. And when he would begin the next day is where he would come to his biggest epiphany he would possibly imagine. See, for a long time he thought that he was kind of at his limit, or at least to a large extent was at his limit, and he wasn't sure that he could actually go beyond what he's at right now, especially involving the creativity. But soon he would see everyone's quirks in action, and very, very quickly he would realize that a frontal kind of like understanding of every single person's quirks, from Bakugo, from Kirishima to Todoroki, all of those things could genuinely help him in his hunt for perfection with his Frostbite Quirk. I mean, he would continue this train of thought, especially when he actually meets his childhood hero, All Might. Yes, All Might. He would meet All Might in front of, well, his whole class, of course, and All Might would bust in saying that I am here. He would tell everybody that is standing there, or sitting there, more or less, that they're going to be doing heroes versus villains training to go basically get on their hero outfits. Now, Izuku would don a hero outfit similar to the one in canon, but it's more involving the aspects of him being cold. He'd have more fur padded clothing, maybe a hoodie that would basically contain some of his cold, and also on top of that, some of these like suits that were made for him, especially by UA, so not by his mother like in canon, made by UA, actually allow him to straight up shoot blasts of ice out of his hands like an actual like machine gun. It could be ice shards, it could be a mist, it could be a condensed mist and condensed fog, it could be large shards. All of these things he can actually do through the suit, but he actually can do it normally as well. Just the suit allows him to more or less utilize that type of, or that power that he wants to enact on his opponents just a lot easier. And that's what the suit allows him to do, especially storing up different amounts of cold within the suit. And he kind of can turn it off and on. So he stores it up in the suit and can utilize it for a blast. And when he utilizes it for a blast, it's not actually taken away from his own deposits, you could say, that are within his own body. But eventually we get to the very start of the Heroes vs. Villains training, and All Might would make the announcement that it will be Izuku and Uraraka as the heroes, and Bakugo and Tenya Ida as the villains. Now, this is where Izuku's brain definitely comes into action about what they should do. He doesn't have a grudge against Bakugo. He doesn't know that Bakugo has a grudge against him. If really Bakugo has that much of a grudge. He kind of shows that he's a little bit irritated by Izuku, but not that much. But he can assume by the personality of the Pomeranian that he'll probably come charging in. And Izuku says that they should just finish this quick and easy, in which Uraraka would ask how's that, or how would they do that? And he would tell Uraraka that they could straight up just glide to the top of the building and actually utilize their own recon skills to figure out where the bomb is. He says that he can just basically pick her up and they can glide around the building to find out where the quote-unquote bomb is and just get it out of there almost in an instant. In which Uraraka thinks that this is going to be a little bit embarrassing that he's going to be holding her, but Izuku says that if she feels better about it, that she could just float alongside him, he guesses. And then she kind of was like, oh, well, it kind of makes me sick to do that. And Izuku just cuts her off and says, well, I guess that means holding you it is. And Izuku would just shake his head and be kind of confused at why she would be acting this way. But once the timer would end, being that the 5 minutes are up, he would grab her and then begin to skate on all the way up the building and around the building until he finds the floor with the bomb in it. Now, the bomb is placed on a window, so he's kind of able to spot it relatively easily, or at least kind of spot it. So when finding the bomb, they would infiltrate immediately, shattering the glass, and the whole room would turn to ice. Actually turn to ice very similar to the way Todoroki does later on, but this version is almost instantaneous. It's as if Izuku emits it from his body and it immediately just sticks to the ground and turns the ground itself, like the cement, into ice, giving the cement kind of like this frostbite type of thing. It's as if the ice spreads and converts, as if it's converting the cement into pure ice. Now, in doing this, it does kind of mess with the integrity of the building a little bit, but of course Izuku is able to put enough power so the building doesn't like partially collapse in, especially with this room. But they're able to touch the bomb, and Tenya is pretty upset. Like, Izuku just straight up outsmarted all of them and easily found the bomb and touched it in a matter of probably 15 seconds or so, maybe a little bit more, 15 to 30 seconds, but Izuku's able to do it very quickly, and this would lead to All Might congratulating them and saying that they did a great job, very quick and concise. And Izuku would kind of nod to this and more or less tell Uraraka that he does take a lot of respect from Aizawa in terms of quick and concise action. So yes, he partially apologizes for not allowing her to input what maybe she thought was the best idea, but he's been taught by Aizawa to find the quickest way to more or less stop something, or effectively stop something, and then approach it to its best degree, which that's what he just did. Izuku would make it very known that he's trying to be the greatest hero he possibly can be, even better than All Might, and if that means being quick, concise, and also effective, that's exactly what he's going to do. Of course, Bakugo is extremely pissed off, so when Izuku's walking away, Bakugo would blast toward him, trying to actually hit him, and then immediately Izuku drops him with one blow. And it's as if he didn't even touch him. Everybody's shocked. Cameras begin to kind of spiral out, and Uraraka standing there in complete, utter, just disarray. What the hell did he just do? Bakugo dashed at him, and then he just stopped flying and collapsed to the ground. Izuku would kind of wave his hand a little bit as if he's dispelling something, and Bakugo would kind of shake and then wake right back up, in which everybody is happy that Bakugo's okay, but shocked about what the hell just happened. He would pick Bakugo up and drag him off, and he would tell All Might to get his students in check and that he respects him greatly, but as a teacher, it's obvious that he's not the best. In which All Might is shocked to hear this because that sounds a lot like Aizawa. Now, he would then ask Izuku what he just did, and Izuku would explain that he more or less just partially froze Bakugo's lungs, incapacitating him, but then immediately brought him back by dispelling the frostbite, you could say. And he begins to say that if he wanted to be a villain, he could do some really, really, really bad things with his quirk. And now, he's not saying these things to threaten anybody, but he just wants it to be known that his quirk can do very, very, very scary, scary things, because the frostbite in his body, or the Frostbite Quirk, can utilize the human body's actual consumption of water. And on top of that, the fact that your body is made up of 80% water, it's not a good, especially when you're trying to fight one-on-one. Izuku says that there's no damage necessarily to Bakugo, especially when he did that, shutting him off and shutting him back on. Maybe a bit of a lightheadedness or maybe a headache later on. But other than that, he'll be fine. Especially because Izuku has had so much practice with his quirk from here on out. But everyone thinks, wow, this dude is effing scary. Like, that is terrifying. What do you mean? Like, you can freeze him from the inside out? And Izuku would basically nod at this, and that would be Kirishima asking that, thinking that's super cool, but at the same time super terrifying. Like, he straight up said that he could freeze me from the inside out, and I have no way of stopping it. That is a terrifying thing. But Izuku would just stand there like he's a normal student watching the rest of the matches. And this is where things come into play with the idea of more or less being able to help himself through other people. Now, Izuku would begin watching, and he would see a ton of stuff happening. The big thing is more or less learning from other people. So people like Kirishima, people like Todoroki, and others that use their quirks in various different ways, Izuku begins jotting these things down. I mean, he's never necessarily thought about using his own body as a kind of a format of spikiness and durability, and he's actually thought about like weaponry and stuff like that, maybe like physical like swords and stuff, but he's never thought of like armor being practical. But if he actually was able to induce the water in his body properly, maybe it would make sense. Maybe it would actually work properly, and he would have like protective armor on his body, like a layer of ice that is extremely durable, and so durable to the point that might be as hard as cement or even further, because the way he kind of destroys more or less cement and other things and changes it into ice strictly. I mean, there's a good chance that Deku has extremely powerful armor if he so chooses to utilize it in that way. But that's just a couple ways he could utilize it, and he has other people to take inspiration from, various people in Class 1A, and also various people that are truly heroes on the very outside of the school. But as Izuku would continue on watching and taking notes, the day would eventually end and All Might would send everybody home once again. But Izuku would try and more or less obtain anything that he could possibly obtain in a small window of training. He doesn't want to overdo it because he does have some complications when he overworks himself, like to a large degree, and they have seen that in the past where Izuku would work so hard and then it would be very tough to keep everything together. Yes, he can make a glacier, and yes, he can make these constructs, right? But if he utilizes it over a long period of time, all the time, with no downtime at all, then there's a couple issues. But one of the hardest and one of the most testing things Izuku has in his coming life now is coming up right the very next day, and that would be the USJ. The USJ is something that is monumentous for Izuku's progression, as he needs to learn how to rescue people utilizing his quirk. Now, the journey over there is a pretty basic one, and they all speak together and talk about who they think has the strongest quirk and so on and so forth. Now, there are people that point to Izuku, people that point to Todoroki and Bakugo and so on, and the list goes on in terms of those people, but most people say that Izuku has shown some insane feats already, so it's probably him. And everything is fun and games for a long time, but when they arrive at the USJ, they have no idea what's in store for them, because their first conflict with actual villains is about to go underway. And it's a scary thing, because guess what? There is a villain or a league of villains that is ready to lay siege on Class 1A and UA High School in general. Shigaraki and the League of Villains is about to show their face for the very first time and wreak havoc. Or at least that's what their plan is, because they're coming to kill the #1 hero, All Might. With that said, that is the end of part 1 of What If Deku Had a Frostbite Quirk. If y'all enjoyed and want to see more, show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. Show some love to the video. Don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting this video to do thousands of views. I'm not expecting like 30, 40, 50,000 views. I just want y'all to show support to the video. Watch the video, hopefully enjoy the video. And I'm going to try to get the next part out to y'all as soon as possible. My goal, and this is a goal, this is probably optimistic, is to get one series out a week. So basically I have a whole Deku series, or whatever series I want. Deku, like maybe a more narrative Demon Slayer, maybe Shield Hero, maybe this, maybe that, whatever. But my goal is to have one series a week. So if that means 3 parts, 4 parts, and a movie, 5 parts and a movie, something like that. You might even get a video if I'm really feeling it, and you guys show tons of love. Shoot, you might even see a video every day. You never know, right? So show some love to the video, support the channel. I appreciate it. Like I said, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Peace out.